Without further delay, I will pass the floor to Filipa Pereira. It is a great pleasure to have Filipa here with us. Filipa is a research data manager at FCT FCCN, coordinating several initiatives of open science, namely the already mentioned Research Data Management Forum. She has a master's degree in pharmaceutical medicine and has worked as an oncology clinical research associate at Shooter International, based at Novartis prior to this job. Filipa, it's really nice to have you with us. Thank you very much.
Okay, so hello, good morning to everyone. As Hannah referred, I'm Filipa Pereira, and I'm working in research data management at the Scientific Computing Unit of FCT, that is the Foundation for Science and Technology. And first of all, I would like to thank the opportunity to participate in this session. And I would like also to greet both the participants of the training and also the instructors. So today I will make a brief intervention on research data management policies, covering the main requirements from funders. So if you have any questions, I will try to leave at the end of the presentation also my email address in case you want to contact further with any additional clarification. And if there's time, of course, I'll be available to answer your questions. So during the presentation, I will address some of the topics that I consider important in terms of the relevance of the research data management policies, namely the relevance of the funders, their role and position, also the main requirements and general recommendations in terms of open access to data. And finally, I would like also to present FCT's policy on management and sharing of data. So, as you know, open science is based on the principle that scientific research, especially the one that is publicly funded, should be shared and reused in order to contribute to accelerate and disseminate the scientific knowledge. In this training, we are covering life sciences. However, it is very important to note that open science covers all the scientific domains. So open science has a high number of benefits, not only for the scientific community, but also for funders and the society in general. In fact, researchers see their results achieve and increase visibility. They have the chance to validate their data and therefore observe a greater efficiency. And also they have the chance to expand their network of collaboration. The funders themselves obtain a greater return of the projects they finance, precisely through the greater visibility and reuse of the results. And also the society in general becomes more secure and also more confident with the transparency of the processes and of the results. And obviously, this all leads to an increased dissemination of research and innovation. So most funders require that funded research results should be made available openly wherever possible. So the idea here is to give the opportunity to other users to use and build on this knowledge. And in fact, a significant number of funders have research data management policies in place, which include a set of principles and requirements to be met by their grant recipients. And that's exactly what I would like to share with you now. A list of the most common principles and requirements that are included in data policies to ensure the best RDM practices. So one of the principles that was already referred before by Eloy is exactly the fact that open access to generated research data is required under the premise as open as possible, as closed as necessary, meaning that there can be exceptions to this. Additional RDM should be in line with the FAIR principles. So data should be findable by attributing, for instance, a persistent identifier, present enriched metadata to describe the data, and ensure that it can be located, namely through search portals. Data must also be made accessible, and here we can talk about, for instance, the authentication or the authorization protocols. It is also very important that data is considered interoperable. And why? Once data is very frequently integrated with other data, and there is normally interaction with other applications, analysis, and processing flows. And the last item for the FAIR principles, that is the data reuse, and normally it's one of the main objectives of FAIR data, should be used in order to use instance or an adequate description of data and metadata. Another of the requirements that is quite common is the submission of data management plans. In fact, they are mandatory within a significant number of data policies. And basically, this document that you will get further information during the course is considered a key practice in research data management. In fact, this formal document outlines, we can say, from the start of the project, all the aspects of the research data lifecycle, including, for instance, their organization, the curation, the process of preservation, the sharing process, what are the resources needed, and so on. It is expected that researchers grant open access to their results through the deposit of data in a repository. And here it is very important, and it is of major importance, that repository is considered a trusted one. And also a common requirement is the provision of information via repository on tools and instruments precisely needed for the reuse and validation of the data. And finally, I would like to mention the importance of allocating persistent identifiers and licenses that might allow other users to access, explore, and reproduce the data and metadata. So this is a brief list of the main requirements that we can find when we make an analysis comparing the several RDM policies that are in force. So we have been observing a significant increase in open science and open data frameworks and initiatives. Once my intervention is not so long, I selected only some relevant examples to share with you. And also Eloy made a perfect presentation covering this national and European landscape. So open science is considered a priority for the European Commission. In fact, the Commission considers it as the standard method of working under its research and innovation funding programs. As already presented by Eloy, the most recent program, Horizon Europe, encourages and requires to adhere to open science practices, namely to comply with the requirements I have just outlined in terms of open data. Another important initiative that was already covered as well is the European Open Science Cloud, that is considered a digital initiative from the European Commission. And I think that one perfect sentence is that EOSC embodies the practice of open science and also open data. So its main objective is to ensure an open and secure environment in research data management and also for the researchers. And very important, this initiative supports the federation of existing research infrastructures and provides several data services such as storage, management, analysis, and also, very important, the reuse. I would like also to mention Science Europe, that is an European agency that supports the several funding agencies in Europe. This entity has been preparing various guides and recommendations, not only on open science, open data specifically, but very, very important on open access itself. And Science Europe is in fact considered a reference entity by the scientific community. So it's always a very important reference when we are dedicating to this type of matters. I I would like also to mention that OECD has issued a set of recommendations concerning access to research data resulting from publicly funded projects. And these recommendations refer the importance of openness, accessibility, and reuse of data. So also in terms of technical standards and practices, it is also recommended to comply with the FAIR principles. I would like now to inform you briefly on the latest updates of open science and open data in FCT. So as you may know, FCT is a national public agency that supports research in 3 perspectives: science, technology, and innovation, and covers all areas of knowledge. So in terms of mission and vision, FCT has the premise to establish Portugal as a global reference in these 3 perspectives: the science, technology, and innovation, and also to ensure that the knowledge that is generated by the scientific research is fully used to contribute to economic growth and also to the well-being of all citizens. FCT has been participating actively in the implementation of actions and measures that aim at the transition to open science. Here, I added a scheme where we can see the transition from open access to open science. And I included here some important landmarks that show precisely these routes. So in 2013, we have the mandatory deposit of master's and PhD theses in the repository that is member of RECAP, that was previously mentioned by Lloyd, that is the Scientific Open Access Repositories of Portugal. In 2014, FCT made available an open access policy concerning scientific publications. This policy is in fact currently under revision in order to include the requirements related to the recent adhesion to Plan S. And also, as Eloy referred, it is in fact expected to have this process ready to start as at the 1st of July of this year. Regarding research data, on the same date, so in 2014, FCT issued a set of recommendations regarding the management and sharing of results. And finally, it's very important to refer what we call the science law that in its Article 8 encourages the open science practice within the research and innovation units. So during last year, 2021, it was prepared an effective data policy proposal, which intends to replace the set of recommendations that I just mentioned. And the objective, of course, is to contribute to the open access to data that is resulting from FCT's funded research. So I would like to make a status of the policy right now. So at the moment, the policy has been already approved by FCT's board, but we are in the process of publication. So we are still pending to finalize this process, but we believe it will happen soon. It is also very important to refer that this policy was prepared and inspired in the actual scientific context and on the most recent open sciences, frameworks, practices, and initiatives as stated in the slide. So in terms of principles, FCT's policy emphasizes the importance of the premise as open as possible, as close as necessary, admitting that specific cases might constitute an exception. Also, data management must be considered an obligation of the grant recipients. And finally, very common to other RDM policies, the data resulting from FCT funded research should comply with FAIR principles. So in terms of requirements and always thinking about the purpose to maximize the reuse of funded research data, the grant recipients should submit a data management plan within the first 6 months of the project. FCT has already defined a model that is based on Science Europe's model. And it is very important also for researchers to understand the DMP as a dynamic document. So it is expected to the researchers update this document whenever it is necessary. Data must also be deposited in a trusted and reliable research data repository. And here we consider it to be registered in the RE3 data directory and or aggregated in OpenAIRE or with a seal such as Cortras seal, Nestor seal, or ISO 16363. FCT also requires the use of persistent identifiers and standardized licenses that may allow other users precisely to access, extract, explore, reproduce, and disclose free of charge data and related metadata. So in this specific topic, the policy has 3 items. So it has the basic data, including associated metadata, that is needed to validate results that are presented in scientific publications, and very important, no later than the moment of their publication. Then we have the specific case, but very relevant, related to public emergencies. And last, all the other data that is included and also associated metadata as specified and within the deadlines that are mentioned on the data management plan. And it should also be provided information, again, via repository on tools and instruments that are needed to proceed with validation of the results. So finally, in order to ensure the monitoring and control of the projects, it is of major importance that it is included a reference to the funding and the project. So for monitoring and compliance purpose, to do a follow-up and traceability of the information. And take into account exceptional cases concerning, namely, the privacy and security, where open access to certain data cannot be granted. It is required to the researchers to include this information on the DMP that they are preparing. So, as you can imagine, the elaboration of such a policy implied also the preparation of an adoption and implementation plan, and matching some of this information with the landscape analysis that was shared by Eloy, we decided that in terms of enforcement, we should observe 3 levels. So the policy should respect a gradual enforcement, and here we have very different perspectives that obviously they are related. So we are talking about, for instance, in terms of objects, where we will focus first on the submission of the DMPs and in the second phase on the data itself. Also in terms of compliance, considering that is needed to raise awareness near the community and making obviously the importance of first data collection, then the validation, finally the assessment. Also, the level of the data deposit requirement itself that might change and the criteria need to be adjusted. Also in terms of the incentives level, so considering first some training and some planning to create the awareness near the community, and then on the second phase, apply sanctions in case of non-compliance. And obviously in terms of the scope, because as you know, FCT's financing instruments are quite different, and we decided to make an analysis and decide to start by the projects. Then we have also an enforcement that is considered didactic. So we need to present, and we have already prepared a plan for dissemination and training. And finally, there is a third aspect that is related to monitoring, where compliance obviously will be assessed. So in order to support the policy and the research data management activities, FCT, through its computing units, will make the following services available to the community. So first, a research data management plan system that will enable researchers to prepare and update their research data management plans. We have already this service available, and it's based on the tool Argus from OpenAIRE. We are also in the process of implementing a long-tail research data repository service based on Dataverse, which will enable researchers to deposit their results appropriately when no other options are available. We will have also a help desk and a support system to the community. And finally, we will implement in the future also a monitoring service to ensure the compliance with the policy. So here I end my presentation. As I said in the beginning, I'm aware that it's a lot of information to cover in such a short period. So I take the chance to share with you my contact in case you have a doubt or need additional clarification. So thank you again for your attention.
Thank you, Felipe, very much. It was a really nice and clear presentation. Are there any questions from the audience? Carolina has raised her hand. Please, Carolina.
Hi, I can, okay. Hi, Felipe.
Hello, Khalid.
Thank you for your presentation. So I just finished my master's, so I know FCT from the apply for a PhD grant, and I'd like to ask if you notice in the recent years that researchers or students are more committed with this concept of open fair, and they try to incorporate these strategies on their proposals.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we are aware of it, but I think that we can say that in terms of maturity, I think that the scientific community needs to be more involved. It's pretty much what Eloy just described before. I think that in terms of assessment and evaluation, I think that there are some steps that need to be taken. But I think that this policy, for instance, in terms of data, it will be the first mandatory policy presented by FCT. So as I referred, we only had a set of recommendations. We had the chance to do a pilot in the course of a call of a project for the researchers to present their data management plans. And surprisingly, there was a good adhesion, and also the data management plans were very well written. So it was a very positive surprise to all of us. I know that researchers are focused, but I think that they also need our support, and not only in terms of requirements, but also in terms of services and infrastructure. So I think that we need to work together in the science and technology ecosystem to assure that in fact we can put in practice these open sciences practices.
Thank you.
Thank you, Felipe. Is there any other question? Okay, I have one. When do you think you will have in place this policy? And why is it so loose and maybe even absent these policies from the current call for R&D projects that is open by the FCT? So
yeah, this has been a very complex process. This process started in the beginning of 2021. And I also can say that even the review of the text started before, and we had the pleasure to work with Eloy, because Eloy was a reference for us and give us all his support to make a revision and prepare a proposal that we consider that is adapted to the actual context of open science practices. But we face some challenges, namely near the business departments within FCT. So we had to plan several meetings with the departments. We had to assure that everyone was in the same page, and also to assure that their concerns were mitigated in such a way. So we sometimes had to assure that, for instance, in terms of monitoring, that we would implement a system, because it does not make sense to have a policy with requirements that nobody is going to check if they are being compliant or not. So this took a long time. We had to prepare, as I said before, also a plan for the adoption, implementation, and also the operationalization of the policy. And what I think that it was the most complex process was to select the financing instrument. So for us, it was really, really important that this policy would come to force before the call that you just mentioned regarding all scientific domains. And it was not launched before that. So for us, it was not a very pleasant surprise because we were in fact very committed to have it done by that time. But we are now, and this is a light at the end of the tunnel. So I just want to share with you this information. We are now discussing with the department that launched the call that will be possible to include the policy in the moment where the researchers or the projects will be selected. So it was not included right now before the call was launched, but it will be shared with the beneficiaries that will be selected. So we are quite sure that it's possible to integrate this policy by then. But it has been a very complex, and I can say, and I'm not going to be very polite now, but it has been very frustrating, this whole process. But I'm sure that when it comes to force this policy, I think that everything is going to run smooth, we hope.
Thank you, Filipa.